The Florida Gators are wrapping up their transfer portal class, which means we got more visits today.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen, your host, lifelong Florida Gators fan, and today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. And the Florida Gators are wrapping up the transfer portal window. Just before we talk about the specific players, because Florida does have a few visits on campus this weekend. So before we talk about that, really quickly, I just wanted to remind everybody that the transfer portal window closes tomorrow in the sense of players will no longer be allowed to enter the transfer portal after tomorrow. Okay, or players will no longer be able to announce they're entering the transfer portal after tomorrow. Okay, couple things there. First off, that means that players will enter the portal on Saturday and Sunday as long as they're announced and paperwork is started before them. 2, players that are playing in the national championship, so Indiana and Miami, are allowed to enter the portal if there's a 5-day window after the national championship game for them to enter the transfer portal. So there will be some more guys, right? And 3, and most importantly, this is only the end of the window for players to enter the transfer portal. Over the coming weeks, kids will be committing to schools, and that'll be fine as long as you're enrolled in time to, fit for spring ball and everything, then you'll be good. But this is the window for them to enter the transfer portal. Like some of these kids will be on campus still, probably on Saturday after the transfer portal window has closed. So see that one of those kids that will probably be, and I say kids just because, I'm a man. I'm 30 now. I get to say that now. One of the kids on campus is going to be USF, South Florida, cornerback Jonas Duclona. He is a outside corner. He's going to be on campus tomorrow is when he gets there. A lot of these visits have gone, I've gone 2 days, some 3. And so I would imagine that that's not going to change. And so for Jonas Duclona, who's 5'11", 190 pounds, I would think that this goes maybe, Friday to Saturday, or if there's a commitment, then there's a commitment. But he is indeed one of the better transfer portal corners still available, and might be the best transfer portal corner on Florida's board remaining, right? And I'm not saying I don't know what the ranking is. I'm not talking about the ranking. I don't care about the ranking. We've had these conversations before. No recruiting service has the manpower to go and watch all these kids. They're not watching 5,000 plus kids and giving proper, honest evaluations. So I don't care about portal recruiting rankings. But Jonas Duclona is a corner that started his career at Wisconsin, then transferred to USF, played last year at USF, and that was his only year playing for the Bulls. So yes, he was out there when Florida went to the Swamp and won. And then the following week was when he allowed his only touchdown of the season against Miami. And then a couple weeks after that, right, maybe 3 weeks after that, he got his pick against North Texas. And I mentioned North Texas because that was a prolific passing attack, right? There's a reason that a bunch of them are now at Oklahoma State because Eric Morris got hired there and took a bunch of players, including Drew, his QB. So Jonas Duclona set to visit campus tomorrow, but important to remember also, and we don't know if these visits will actually happen, But at the time of recording this at 5 a.m., Jonas Duclona is set to also visit Iowa State and Georgia Tech. He has already visited Oklahoma State in this portal window, and now he has Florida tomorrow. So he is someone who, if he gets on campus and doesn't get off, great. He can cancel those visits. He might be someone who wants to stay with his other visits that he got set up there. And that's a possibility as well. Pro Football Focus credits him, which, again, I say credits him because those numbers are not necessarily always accurate. I'm sure they are in a lot of cases. But the better way to describe them, and we talk about, catches allowed, which I think is more important for linebackers and safeties than corners. I do think corners generally pretty accurate, but it's usually the closest defender, which is why I think, for linebackers, it's tough because that could not be your guy, but they're running through your area. That cannot be your zone, your assignment, and they're running through near the area. And I just think it gets messy where there's more bodies. But, corner, a lot of times you're on the outside. So that is what it is. But PFF credits him with 13 completions on 23 targets, which is a 56.5% completion rate. 1 touchdown allowed, like I mentioned, against Miami. 1 interception, like I mentioned, against North Texas. 2 more passes broken up over the year, and a 68.2 passer rating allowed. He's, again, pretty exclusively an outside corner. I forgot if I mentioned his size, but 5'9", 5'11", 190. He's someone that I view as the best of this bunch that's going to be on campus, at least as we know right now at the time of recording this. There's 4 names that we know are going to be on campus starting today and tomorrow. And Jonas Duclona is the only one that actually starts tomorrow. But he's, I think, the biggest, I don't want to say biggest name, but the biggest contributor of the bunch. He's the one that I think is most likely to actually have a role on this team and at least compete for a spot on the rotation. Elevate the depth at the cornerback position, which is what I've been like. I know people get annoyed when I say that I think Florida needs corner help, but realistically, I think you have a bunch of young guys who we don't know what they are on a large scale. Like we haven't seen a lot of them on large scales. We know there's promise with guys like Dijon, guys like Javari, guys like Ben Hanks. Like we've seen it, but can I know that they're going to be available there and that they're going to continue improving? Nope. I can't know that. I think they will, but I can't know that. And so adding a guy like Jonas Duclona gives you that little bit of, comfort there, gives you a little bit of experience depth, and again, gives the room more experience. This is the not exactly the John Summerall angle in the portal, because if I'm not mistaken, Jonas Duclona only has 1 year of eligibility left. And as we know, John Summerall has been mostly going after players with multiple years of eligibility, but I do think this might be one of those cases where it's like, hey, we just need someone for a year. And it could be as simple as that. Like you could just say, hey, we just need a body for a year. Like, all right, get a body for a year, call it a day. And so I think Jonas Duclona helps make this room better, make this room deeper. I'd like to see him contribute on special teams a good bit, but who knows what's going to happen with special teams, right? You could see a bunch of starters out there. You could see depth guys out there. But for Florida, Jonas Duclona would be someone that I would like to take in this class. Just, again, give you some experience, depth, part of a rotation. Call it a day. Done. Because, again, corner is just a spot where I think you need depth. I'm fine with a lot of the young talent and saying, hey, someone has to step up, right? Cormani, we don't know what Cormani's going to be. We know that he's shown flashes, but we don't know what he's going to be. So I think right now it's just like at corner, you've got enough young guys to say 1 or 2 should definitely step up before the start of next season. But at the same time, you'll probably have someone who doesn't develop to the rate that you were hoping or expecting or anticipating. And so it's good to have some qualified experience depth behind them. We'll talk more about the Florida Gators transfer portal weekend when we get back with Locked On Gators. I'll tell you, there's nothing like going to a college sports experience is what I like to say. You got college football, college basketball, some of the best environments that you'll ever be in, right? Tailgates, packed stadiums or arenas if it's basketball, being right there in the middle of the action. Everybody that has seen me at a football game or gone to a football game with me knows I always want to be front row. I know like certain stadiums, people are like, oh, go sit in this section. I want to be front row always. I want to just feel the noise just coming down and just feel what's on that field, or as close as I can get to it. And it's amazing. I always buy my tickets on game time. That's why game time gives the advantage back to fans, right? It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college experiences and tickets in just a few taps. Take the guesswork out of buying college tickets with game time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators have another big addition or another big visitor coming onto campus this weekend. And big in a different way. Some of you may know where I'm going with this, but Florida has Baylor defensive linemen, which again, Florida just loves Baylor defensive linemen. They do. I don't know what it is, but they do. We've had this conversation in the insider program before, or with some insiders before that have mentioned it. Of like, why do we always go after Baylor defense? I don't know why I almost said Bengals. Why do we always go after Baylor defensive linemen? And I think that part of it is partially, again, that coaching tree of Ron Roberts, Dave Aranda, Patrick Toney, Austin Armstrong, all those guys. I think part of it is that Gerald Chapman has worked with defensive fronts that are similar to that defensive system that Roberts tree runs. Part of it could also just be, hey, like they've got some good players, right? Like Brendan Bett worked out wonderfully. Brendan Bett's one of your better players on the roster this year right now. He really is. I mean, he just hooped last year. You brought in DK Kalu, who's going to be another interior defensive lineman that's going to be part of this rotation or depth. And then you're bringing in for a visit. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name. Samu is his first name. Taumanupepe is his last name. And he is 6'3", 376 pounds. So he is just an absolute unit on the interior, with basically no production in his career. Spent a couple years at Texas A&M, spent last year at Baylor, now has 2 years of eligibility remaining, so fits the John Summerall bit. Has 2 years of eligibility remaining and is set to be on campus starting today. Virtually no production, like I said, right? Which also, you're not going to get much from a nose tackle. Like there's not many nose tackles where you go, oh, he's got a bunch of production. That doesn't happen at that position because that's not your job. Your job is not to put up production. Your job is to eat blocks and let others put up production. In most defenses, that's going to be how nose tackles use. Also, Samu, I forgot if I said it, went from Texas A&M to Baylor to potentially Florida. And again, just like at that size, it's just really tough for offensive linemen to move that. And I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, that you're really looking for, right? Is just when you talk about a nose tackle, it's like, I just need you to be a space eater. You say it all the time, a space eater. That's it. You don't have to be an amazing football player. You don't need to make a ton of tackles for a loss. You really don't. To be just a quality nose tackle or an acceptable average nose tackle, you just got to kind of hold your ground, fight. That's it. And if you could do that, you could do that. So you could do that here. You could do that here. Didn't do it at Baylor, but not because you didn't do it at Baylor, but because you didn't play at Baylor. I would say that if Samu Tamu Pepe is a Florida Gator, I know there's going to be people that are hyped for it because he's a huge dude, right? 376 pounds is massive. I almost dropped an F-bomb to emphasize how massive 376 pounds is. And that's 6'3". Like it's not like he's like, like 6'6" and weighs that much. Like, no, this isn't like a guy that's just tall and wide, right? Like this is someone who is 6'3" and 376 pounds, and that is just tough. Like Des Watson was 6'5", 6'6", right? This guy's shorter. Obviously not as big as Des Watson, but he's shorter and still that weight. That gets carried different. And to say all that, if he's a Florida Gator, I will not have high expectations for him. And that's not to be, pessimistic. I feel like there's a lot of guys that I talk about and people think I'm being pessimistic. That's not the point. It's not what I'm trying to do. Like I would love to be more optimistic about things, and I will also say this: I'd take him. I don't even care if he's great. I would take that size and trust Gerald Chapman. I've said before, like any defensive lineman that Gerald Chapman wants to take, I'm good with it. Even if I have a different opinion of the player. If there is a defensive lineman that Gerald Chapman looks at and goes, I could work with that, then you go ahead and work with that. And I'll shut up, right? But I will say with the guy like with Samu Tamu Pepe, if he's a Florida Gator, yeah, I wouldn't expect much from him. But I also understand this is me speculating. But coaches have egos, right? I've always been open about that. I think every coach has an ego, no matter what it is. Sometimes that ego is a good thing. Sometimes that ego is a bad thing. Sometimes that ego gets you fired, like not wanting to give up offensive play calling duties. I think that if there's or what might be the ego for Gerald Chapman is seeing a bunch of guys and going, I could fix that. I could fix that. I can get that out of them. Which you might be able to. You genuinely might be able to. But I think that's what it would be. And this would be a case of that. Like if you take him and that's like this would be a case to prove you right in that. I would not say no to that size, especially if I have a defensive line coach that I know can develop players. But I would also say, like, I'm not going to have many expectations for you. Partially because, like, at that size, it's tough to be great at a lot of things. Like that's big. 6'3", 376 is big. And so that's just tank size. There's no other way, but he's just an absolute unit. If you could bring him in, he would be again. I think he might play, but would I have many expectations for him? No. I do think that this defense might go again up front. I think you might see more of a 4 down, like more of a traditional 4 down front. Or not even traditional, but because I do think that you'll see a bit of a modern twist where like there's going to be times where you have essentially 2 noses, 2 3 techs. Like you just have, and by that I just mean like you're gonna have times where you probably have 2 giants on the interior, and probably times you got 2 gap shooters on the interior, right? Like you could see Brendan Bett and Jeremiah McLeod maybe as the 2 on the interior. So, all right, shoot gaps, right? So maybe it's one of those instances like we've talked about before, but it's like, hey, some games you're gonna play, some games you're not. Depends on the matchup, depends on the situation. If we need just a tank in the middle, welcome. Solid approach. Solid approach. Just add role players at this point. You got more roster spots, got more coaches, got a ton going on. And the Florida Gators, hopefully, going to get better this weekend. We have 2 more players to talk about today. We'll get to them when we get back with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free. We're visiting the podcast and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators have 2 more visitors on campus this weekend, both starting today. We will briefly start with one that we've already talked about, which is South Alabama tight end Trent Thomas. We didn't talk about him today, but we've spoken about him on, I think it was Tuesday and Wednesday's live shows. We spoke about him, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been Wednesday morning's regular show and Wednesday's live show. But South Alabama tight end Trent Thomas is supposed to be on campus starting today. Like I said, we've spoken about him before, like 5 catches for 39 yards in his career. Plenty of experience. But at the end of the day, the way that I view him is you bring him in, He gets to be an inline guy that sometimes might play, sometimes won't touch the field. Ideally, frankly, won't touch the field much. Like, because a lot of the tight ends that Florida has added are more dynamic guys, retaining Amir Jackson, adding Lakota Dibry, adding Luke Harpering. Like, they've been more athletic, dynamic guys. I think that the point of adding Trent Thomas would just say, hey, let's get an inline guy with experience so that if we need him, we've got him. Like, that's it. I think that you've seen quite a few players where it's let's get a guy with experience so that if we need him, we've got him. Like I'd rather, what is it? Rather have him and not need him than need him and not have him or something like that. I think you could take that approach with some of these guys, like a Trent Thomas. I think that you can again take him and he could be a practice body, like the camp body, like in the NFL, where there's like, yeah, you're gonna come in, be a guy that we're pretty confident you're not gonna be an impact player for us, but get camp reps, get camp film, maybe make an impression. Who knows? I think that's how I view Trent Thomas here. And the other player that's going to be on campus also starting today is Oklahoma State wide receiver Jaylen Lloyd. Starts his visit today. Has been pretty unproductive throughout his entirety of his career. Has 19 catches for 492 yards in his career, but did not have a catch in 2025 for Oklahoma State. He had 19 catches for 492 yards and 3 touchdowns in his career. The impressive part there is if you're doing the quick math, which if you can do the math of 492 divided by 19 that quickly, then you are a wizard, Harry. That's all I can tell you. Like, that's it. I didn't want to do the accent or anything. I live here. It feels a little, too, I don't know, appropriation-y. Is that a thing I could say about British people? I don't know. They colonized us, but they lost the war. That's all I could say. But in Jaylen Lloyd's 2 seasons of actually contributing as a pass catcher in Nebraska, had 492 yards on 19 catches, which is 26 yards per catch. Like, I don't know. I think that 19 catches is a large enough sample size to just be like, all right, that's just outright productive. Like, that's just outright dangerous downfield. And we'll look at his numbers right now because I realized I didn't look at what his longs were to get him to that number, right? Like, he's got in 2024, right? 2024, yeah. He had a catch of 36. His longs for each game were 36, 59, 17, 25, 30, 17, -1, 24, 8, and 7. So again, you got like a 59, a 36, a 30, a few more over 20. Then you go to 2023 and you look at what his catches were. And he's got a long of 66, 58, 25, -4, 73, and 19. He's nothing more than a deep threat vertical guy, right? That's all he is. 8 carries for 13 yards through 3 years. So I feel like looking at the 8 carries for 13 yards. Can I actually see what the gotta love some things about PFF? Like, we can see what kind of carries they were. It was a reverse that lost 5 yards in 2023, an end around that gained a yard in 2023. He had 2 end arounds to the right that had a gain of 9 and a gain of 6 in 2023. He had 11 rushing yards. 10 of them came after contact in 2023. In 2024, he had 2 carries on jet sweeps that went 0 yards. 1 went 4, 1 lost 4, and he had a reverse that gained a yard. And then in 2025, his 1 carry was a reverse that gained a yard. So not exactly the most explosive guy there, right? And I bring that up just to say that even when you watch him play, you're kind of like, that's straight line track speed. Like, that's not this like Percy Harvin type guy. That's like straight line track speed. I'm just going to outrun you. I'm not going to really shake and bake a ton. I'm just going to run. And Florida seems pretty interested in bringing in someone that fits that. Of they're just fast, and maybe part of that is saying, "Hey, like Buster Faulkner's like, I think I can get someone like that open and have speed." Sure, but Jaylen Lloyd is not someone that I expect to be very productive in this offense. This is a stacked receiver room, frankly. Like how often are you talking to other Florida Gators fans and you go, "Wow, there's a lot of talent in this receiver room. They're so good and they're young. It's incredible." That tells you there's not a lot of playing time readily available in the receiver room. Behind Eric Singleton, Vernon Brown the third, Dallas Wilson, yes, you can rotate, you can do whatever you want. But man, that's there's a lot of talent in that room. There's not a lot of playing time available. Plain and simple. And that's a good thing. I'm not complaining at all. I think that you'll have, a good healthy rotation of guys. But yeah, I don't know. I can't see adding some of the guys and being like, oh yeah, they're gonna be contributors and we feel confident in that. There's only one football to go around. And you still got a Jaden Ball in the backfield chomping at the bit. So we'll see. Thanks for your Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's the podcast and on YouTube. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators with swampsignal.substack.com. At the time of recording this, I also have New York Giants on SI work to do because while I was recording, the New York Giants hired John Harbaugh or are finalizing an agreement. Whatever. I don't know if there's been an update, but finalizing an agreement to get John Harbaugh as the new head coach. So there we go. And I'll see you all next time.